Archaeologist Jody Magnus is taking me to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where there is a little-known link to the Garden of Eden. So this is it. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Many Christians believe this is the site where Jesus was crucified and buried. But another ancient tradition says it's also the burial place of Adam.
The area that we're walking into here is underneath the rock of Golgotha, which is the rocky outcrop on which Christians believe Jesus was crucified. And this is called the Chapel of Adam. There's a tradition which goes way back in Christianity, which connects this spot to Adam, the first man. When Jesus was crucified on top of the rock above us, his blood flowed down through a crack in the rock, and Adam, the first man, lay buried underneath. And when Jesus' blood flowed onto Adam, Adam was then resurrected.
Almost 1,700 years ago, when Roman Emperor Constantine built the church, he also made a shrine around this crack in the rock of Golgotha, the Chapel of Adam. But doesn't this contradict that section of the Bible that says that the Garden of Eden was located somewhere near the Euphrates and the
Tigris? Well, the version of the story that ended up in the book of Genesis seems to place the Garden of Eden somewhere in Mesopotamia, which is the area of modern Iraq.
So how do you think the tradition of Adam gets to be here in Jerusalem?
Well, I think Adam probably does have a very special connection with Jerusalem. The Garden of Eden, or paradise, becomes conceptualized as a spot where the presence of God dwells. In early Judaism, in the time of Jesus, the presence of God dwelled in the temple on the Temple Mount, and hence Jerusalem was conceived of as Eden, as paradise.
So you're saying Eden could also be a metaphor?
Right, well, yes, of course, Adam was the first human. And in Hebrew, the word Adam, Adam, just means man. Human.
Hold up. You just said something now. The word just means man.
Yes.
Adam.
Yes. Also, the name Adam, if you take off the A and you just leave D-A-M, in Hebrew, dam, that means blood. Or if you add an A-H to the end, Adama means land.
Land itself, into blood.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Could the story of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the garden also have metaphorical meanings? Adam and Eve lived in a land of plenty. But when they ate the fruit of the forbidden tree, they were cast out and forced to work the land. In other words, they became the first farmers. I'm heading to a region where researchers are digging up some of humanity's oldest farming communities in central Turkey. I'm interested in finding out if the birth of farming and the birth of belief in God are connected. Could this have been Eden? Amy?
Hello. Come on over.
Archaeologist Amy Bogard has been digging with a team here at Çatalhöyük for 2 decades.
Welcome.
Thank you. So, Çatalhöyük, 9,000-year-old settlement. 9,000 years old.
Amazing, isn't it? So, at its maximum extent, it's 13 hectares. That would be like 20 football pitches in extent.
Or NFL football pitches or soccer pitches?
I don't know. Probably soccer.
Okay, but they're all pretty much the same size.
You can see that these houses are densely crowded together. There isn't much space between them.
There was no space between them.
Yeah.
They had no windows or doors.
Every house would have its own entrance from above. Yes.
Çatalhöyük was a city with no streets. The people who lived here walked across town over the rooftops. Roofs were also where they worked. The people of Çatalhöyük were some of the world's first city dwellers. But I want to know whether they were also some of the first believers. Did they think their world was created by a god? Amy takes me to a house that may hold the answers. What's the point of that red-rimmed hole that looks like very definite, has a definite reason?
It's a typical sort of feature that's found at Çatal, which is a niche for hiding things away. Like they cache obsidian, you know, volcanic glass, because it's a valued, you know, cutting material.
You don't find it everywhere.
Right.
The most important hiding places archaeologists have found at Çatalhöyük are beneath the sleeping areas. Okay, so what are those holes over there?
Those are actually burial places. Those are burial pits where...
Wait a minute. A human being is not going to fit in there. A baby, maybe.
The way they can fit mature adults in pits like that is to bind them up very, very, very tightly in a flex position, and the holes are periodically reopened and new individuals added through the lifetime of the house.
Wow.
People are buried under the platforms so that people are literally living with ancestors.
It sounds like this has some religious content.
I think you're right. And they start to raise questions about what you might call ritual practice, which seem to have been crucial for life in this community.
Could these burials be evidence of belief in God? Anthropologist Harvey Whitehouse is trying to get inside the heads of these early city dwellers.
So this is a pretty authentic mock-up of what a typical kind of house in Çatalhöyük would have looked like. These are the kinds of objects that we'd expect to find in one of those houses. Over here, we've got examples of wall art. You know, here we've got bull heads. We often find these inserted into the walls. In one case, I've seen them arranged almost like a sort of protective shield around one of these clean spaces. And we know that these clean spaces were used for sleeping on.
So, Harvey, you're an anthropologist. Mm-hmm. So you're more into what people are mentally into, right?
Well, my imagination runs riot in an environment like this because I've seen the kind of stuff that comes out of the walls and that they've been taking out of the floors. We know that there were very interesting rituals surrounding the burial of human remains, but those objects would be periodically, in many cases, brought out. What they were doing with them, we don't really know, but in many cases, they were put back very carefully and replaced. It's almost as if this isn't just a domestic dwelling, this is like a kind of living temple.
You use that word, temple.
Temple. Well, what is a temple, you know, if not a sort of an environment in which the ritual life of a community is conducted. And I think that's what is going on in these houses.
Here in Çatalhöyük, there were obviously all kinds of rituals, particularly burial rituals, but no sign of an organized religion. So the question remains unanswered for me. Did religion allow man to live together, grow food? Or did civilization give rise to our belief in God? While in Çatalhöyük, I heard about another excavation just a few hundred miles to the east that may hold the answer for me. It's an 11,000-year-old site that lies between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the biblical location of Eden.
Okay, we're now in enclosure D, the best preserved of the enclosures that we have here. So we've had radiocarbon data, and they've come back as 9,400 plus minus BC.
It's called Göbekli Tepe. And here, I may find evidence of the very first moments humans worshipped the divine. Stone Age architects built 20 monumental circles here made from large T-shaped pillars. Archaeologist Lee Clare leads the team trying to decipher its mysteries.
The two central pillars stand in the middle of a round oval building, and the wall surrounding it, at regular intervals we see smaller T-pillars.
Fearsome animals were carved into some of the pillars. But the stone's T-shapes may represent the human form. They could be men, or they could be gods.
If you look closely, we have the top, the T is the head, and then we have on the side, the broad side, the arm coming down. You can see a belt buckle here. They could be mythological ancestors. Alternatively, they could be really the first deities, first gods that these people were possibly worshipping in this circular structure.
Lee and most archaeologists believe these stone circles were used for rituals, but no one appears to have actually lived here. The people of Göbekli Tepe were roaming hunter-gatherers, not settled farmers. So why did they build a permanent place of worship tied to one spot?
It's one of the main questions we ask ourselves at this site. So why did they come? Now, the thing is, at this time, the communities were growing larger and larger. There was more stress on the local resources. And because communities were growing, there was obviously a risk of conflict. People have problems keeping track of relationships, keeping track of networks.
The growing population meant that people who scarcely knew each other had to work together. That was the recipe for conflict. The religious rituals at Göbekli Tepe may have eased those conflicts. Possibly for the first time in human history, people from different groups came together around shared beliefs. And in those first formative moments of religion, they may have shared stories about where they all came from. Stories that celebrated a shared past and drove them together to the future. Göbekli Tepe traces the birth of religious worship back more than 11,000 years. Long before there were Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, people came together to talk, eat, worship. It could be that the driving force behind our greatest achievement, civilization, was God. But today, we no longer share one story of creation. We live in a global society made up of many different cultures, and science has given us a new perspective on creation. It even claims to know the ultimate secret of our cosmic origins. Can science and religion agree on creation?
Rămâi aici. Programul continuă cu Deichmann.
If we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's make this the best car we have ever done on Car SOS. You have been Car SOS.
Spacious, fantastic.
That's mine.
That's fantastic. That is a perfect vehicle.
Rebuilding dreams and restoring classics. Brand new Car SOS on National Geographic Channel. Selfie cu un simplu gest.